Hello and welcome to In the Kitchen with Mary Mac. Today we're making a summertime frittata. The gardens are full in our area. The farmers markets, the roadside markets, the vegetable stands, everybody has a nice variety of vegetables. And our home gardens do too. They're beginning to get there. So this is the perfect time to make a frittata just full of vegetables. If you're not familiar with frittatas, they're basically like a baked egg dish. You can use all different sorts of vegetables. You can add meat to it if you want to. But the core ingredients of a frittata are eggs, whole milk or heavy cream, some sort of shredded cheese, salt and pepper, and some herbs if you like that. So that's the base ingredients for this. And then to that, you can add whatever variety of vegetables, fresh vegetables that you like. What I did, first let me tell you a little bit about a frittata. So frittata it basically just means fried in Italian. And it's a really old dish, like seriously from back in the Roman Empire. Because like I just said, it's very basic. It's eggs, it's milk, it's cheese, It's a truly an ancient classic dish, I'll say. And it's a really tasty. I mean, it's great for breakfast or lunch or even a light supper. It's sort of like a quiche with no crust kind of a thing. An omelet, a baked omelet. People call it all sort of different things, but it's just it's a very basic recipe. So what I'm going to do, because in my online research, what I discovered is people have a variety of amounts of eggs, a variety of amounts of everything, sizes of pans, techniques. They have a lot of different ways to make these. And I thought, you know what? Everybody doesn't need to make a frittata with 12 eggs in it, So I have what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you ingredient lists for a small, medium, and large frittata so you can customize it to yourself. And it's going to be a very basic list because you can customize it with what's in it also. So the explanation at the beginning will be a bit longer, but once we get into the process, it'll all be the same. So for your ingredients, if you want to make a small frittata, you're going to need 4 eggs, a 1/4 cup of whole milk or heavy cream, 2 to 3 total cups of cut up vegetables, a 1/3 cup of shredded cheese, and then for your seasonings, you'll need, if you choose to use, a 1/2 teaspoon of dry basil or a few torn basil leaves, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, an 1/8 teaspoon of pepper, and olive oil to cook. And you'll need either about a 6 to 8 inch cast iron skillet or an oven-proof baking dish, like a small glass cake pan would work. Those glass, they're like a little casserole dish, but they look like a cake dish or a small casserole dish. For the medium-sized frittata, you will need 8 eggs, a 1/2 cup of milk or heavy cream, 3 to 4 cups total of cut-up vegetables, 2/3 cup of shredded cheese, and about a 9 to 10 inch round baking dish or pie plate, or a 9-inch cast iron skillet. For seasonings, you would want about a 1/4 teaspoon of basil or some, a few leaves torn, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and an 1/8 teaspoon of pepper. Now for the large one, which is what most of the recipes are that are online, you'll need a dozen eggs, 3/4 cup of whole milk or heavy cream, 4 to 6 cups total of vegetables, 1 cup to 1.5 cups of shredded cheese. You'll need a 12-inch diameter baking dish or a 12-inch diameter cast iron skillet. And then you'll need, for that seasonings, you would want about a 1/2 teaspoon of basil or a large handful of torn basil leaves, about 3/4 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. So that's your basic recipes. If you don't have cast iron skillets, or like me, you have a glass top stove and you can't use cast iron on it, I do have Le Creuset coated cast iron that I use. So I have a 12-inch Le Creuset skillet that I use for this that weighs about 150 pounds or so. So, it's always a chore doing that. But you can also saute your vegetables in a regular skillet and just prepare a baking dish of the appropriate size by greasing it. And then you would saute your vegetables, dump them into the baking dish, dump the egg mixture in on top of it, and bake it. Either way, you don't have to have a cast iron or an oven-ready skillet to do this dish. So, once you decide what size you're making, remember these are like large eggs, I would say, is the count for these. If you have extra large or jumbo eggs that you're using, you can scale back an egg or two because they're so much bigger, so keep that in mind also. For the vegetables for this, you can use whatever vegetables you have on hand. I made one just before the podcast today. Chopped onion, chopped red pepper, chopped orange pepper, a cut up yellow squash, a cut up zucchini. What else did I put in there? Mushrooms, sliced mushrooms. I had some orange cherry tomatoes and some regular tomatoes, and I cut those up. Spinach is good in these. You can use any type of peppers that you want, actually. You can use asparagus, diced potatoes, whatever you want. If you had like leftover potatoes, you could cut them up and put them in. So anything like that you want to put in, I would recommend pre-cooking the potatoes before you add them to the skillet. But other than that, you can use anything. You can even add meat to this if you want to. And I would say, like, for your recipe, use the same amount of pre-cooked and crumbled meat as you use for cheese. So if the size you're making calls for a 1/3 cup of cheese, use a 1/3 cup of crumbled meat, to kind of keep it in proportion. So you want to take your vegetables and clean them and prep them so you're ready to go when everything's ready to go. So you want to cut them up. I don't recommend slicing vegetables for a frittata because they tend to stick together when they're sliced, and then you might get a large pile of zucchini in one area and none in another area or something like that. I do slice the mushrooms up, but other than that, everything else is either cubed or just cut up into small pieces. Like your cherry tomatoes, you can cut in half or whatever, and just prep each thing. And I would suggest when you're cutting them up, you can cut up the things that are going to go into the skillet first, the things that take the longest to cook. So the way I do this in order is I get my skillet, I put my olive oil in there. I used Oakmont olive oil's butter garlic, which was, fantastic. Heat your pan up to medium-low heat, and then just chop up your onions and your zucchini and squash because they take a little bit longer to cook. And cook those for a little bit, and then put your peppers in, and then put your mushrooms in, and then the last thing to go in would be your tomatoes. If you're using asparagus, you can judge for yourself. I normally would put the asparagus in with the peppers because it cooks pretty fast and you want to have a little bit of bite to it. If you're going to use fresh spinach, you want to put that in towards the end with your tomatoes. And then as you're cooking this, you're tossing it around so that everything heats. You can preheat your oven while you're cooking this to 400 degrees so that it's ready to go when everything's ready to go. Now, if you're using a baking dish, prep that and have it greased. And then while your vegetables are cooking, I would say at about the addition of peppers and mushroom point, I would start cracking your eggs into a bowl and then add your milk. And you want to beat your eggs really, really well so that they are very creamy looking and they're well aerated. Get those beat up really well with your milk or cream, and then add your cheese to that and mix that in really well. And then add your seasonings, your basil, salt, and pepper. Now, once your vegetables are sufficiently heated, softening, once you can smell the tomatoes, you know it's getting nice and warm. If you're going to bake this in your skillet, you just take your egg mixture, pour it into the skillet and level it out so all the vegetables are down into the egg, and then take it right away and put it into your oven. If you're using the baking dish, very carefully scrape your vegetables into your baking dish and kind of level them out, and then pour your egg mixture over that and set it in the oven. And this bakes for a smaller dish, in the range of 15 to 20 minutes. And for the medium and larger dish, 20 to 25 minutes. And what you want the center to not be wiggly. You just reach in there and with a hot pad and carefully wiggle the dish. You can also check it with a sharp knife, like right in the middle. And if the knife comes out nice and clean, maybe just with some oily looking liquid on it, then you know it's done. and you want the top to be a little bit brown. So you don't want to overcook it, but you also definitely don't want to undercook it. So once it's done, you bring it out of the oven, and you want to let that set for about 15 minutes before cutting, because you want it to set up. And you also have to remember that, I don't know why, but for some reason, baking tomatoes causes them to go to about the temperature of lava. I don't know why that is. They get so hot. So you want everything to kind of settle down to an edible temperature so you don't get any surprises. And then serve that warm with some really good toast and butter. And it is just delicious. Good hot sauce with this too. Some good Chipotle Tabasco. It's always good on it. And this is so good. And what I like to do, like today I made the large size one, which seems insane because it's just my husband and myself. But I will take that and cut that and put it into little containers and take it to work in my lunch. It'll last, I would say, in the refrigerator 2 to 3, maybe 4 days. You don't want to keep it longer than that because it'll get very watery from the vegetables. But it's great leftover, just heat it up in the microwave. It's also great if you're the adventurous sort. It makes a great sandwich. No kidding. You just heat up a little piece of that and put it on a sandwich and, maybe put some extra cheese on there or whatever. It's really good. But like I said, this is a great dish to make with your summertime vegetables, with whatever you have in the garden. It's also a great way to use up zucchini. I used a whole smallish zucchini in here. And don't feel limited by my vegetable quantities. You can, if you end up with more, that's fine. Because the eggs, what this basically is, it's like a bunch of vegetables with an egg-based mortar holding them together on your plate. But like I said, you can make this your own. You use whatever kind of shredded cheese you want. Today, I used a combination of Swiss and Gruyere cheese, which I really, really like. It's very mild, but it doesn't like string out for a mile and a half, Provolone is good in this. I've used cheddar cheese, and I've used this cheddar blend of like 4 different cheeses that was really good in it too. So, you can use whatever cheese you want. If you want to saute your vegetables in butter instead of olive oil, you can do that. I really like the olive oil. Heavy cream makes it a little bit denser, but it's fine with the whole milk. I mean, it's absolutely fine with the whole milk. It's just a really good, simple recipe. It's obviously a simple classic recipe since it's been being made for over 2,000 years. So I would say this is definitely a classic. So go out and make yourself a frittata for breakfast and enjoy it.
And make sure to check us out online on Facebook and Threads at Mary Mac Bakehouse, on Instagram at Mary Mac Bakehouse and Mary Mac Podcast, and our website, marymacbakehouse.com.
Thanks a lot for listening if you did, and if you didn't, too bad for you.